on to the great egg conspiracy. So,
Okay, Stefan Molyneux.
I'll tell you, before we get on to that, on a recent segment, I was talking about AI taking over the world.
Yes.
And I used a Superman analogy. And I wondered basically what would happen if Superman, instead of being raised by red state rural Republicans, he was in fact raised by Democrats.
There's a story of that actually called Red Sun. Superman
Yeah, about 90...
mistakenly lands in Moscow rather than the US and is raised
loads
as a
of people
communist.
in the comments pointed that out. Anyway, during that segment, I mistakenly called Superman's parents Martha and Wayne Kent, which led to Connor here
shouting
basically
at you for the curtains.
breaking the golden rule of studio etiquette of shouting into a live studio to telling us that we were wrong. So in order to not make that mistake, go and have a look at Comics Corner on our website, where you can learn about these important matters. So
there's a new episode coming out next week.
So, in this segment, I'm going to talk about 3 completely unrelated topics, and then you can decide at the end of them if you feel that there's any connection between them, or if indeed they are, as I assert, completely separate topics.
Is any of this going to have to cut off of YouTube at any point?
Well, the thing is, the rules keep changing, so I mean, at some point, I'm sure. But no, I think this is mostly okay. I mean,
If you see the doo-doos prematurely, go to lotuseaters.com or Rumble to watch the rest.
Because, we can say what we like there, so it's uncensored. By the way, you don't even need to pay the £5 a month to watch the podcast on the website. You can watch the whole website. And there's loads of other stuff you can watch for free as well. The £5 just gets you more. Right, so first thing, eggs. Topic 1. Eggs are a bit of a superfood, aren't they? I mean, they've got apparently they've got all essential amino acids, all 9 of them. It's busting with vitamins and minerals. I'm reading from my list here. It's got vitamin B12 and B2 and A and B5 and selenium, and it's got a decent amount of D, and it's got basically small amounts of every vitamin and mineral that you require. So if I was told that I could only ever eat one food going forward, it would probably have to be eggs, unless I did the Jordan Peterson thing and made it only steak or something.
I do that actually. I pretty much only eat steak and eggs. So so protein shake in the morning, yogurt for lunch, 6 eggs, and a giant bit of steak when I get home.
Oh, okay, right. Well, so in addition to them being tasty and basically a superfood, another interesting thing occurred. So, several years ago, we started seeing papers emerge, such as this one, that showed that chicken egg yolk antibodies actually blocked the binding of multiple viruses, including one that was causing a bit of a fuss at the time, that had something to do with the spike protein. So, and by the way, this paper is one of several. I mean, there's loads of them. And I'll put the link in the reading list. So if you want to go and have a look at this paper, you can have a look. And then they suggest similar articles. So you will find a whole bunch of papers have been coming out for years now, suggesting that eggs can help stop your susceptibility to viruses. Now, this particular one was talking about a virus that was prominent at the time. Now, I'm going to read a section from their abstract. So, we investigated the neutralizing effects of spike S1s on the illness, as well as inhibitory effects on the binding of spike protein mutants to humans, ACE2. Our results show that spike S1 showed significant neutralizing potency against the illness. Various spike proteins mutate, and even with that illness in vitro, it might be a feasible tool for the prevention and control of the illness. So that was interesting. And just to show that, this isn't the only one, here's a second paper. So the first one was written in November 2020, and these papers are still coming out, and there's a whole bunch of them. This one, they're a bit more technical in their language, but the relevant line is: our results demonstrate that was able to inhibit ACE2 binding interactions in vitro, suggesting the potential use of blocking the virus entry. Our studies also demonstrate proof of concept that laying hens were able to produce specific IgY, which could block the viral bindings of a large proportion of the specified blah blah blah. Anyway, so the point are, eggs are good. They're a superfood, and they might be quite effective at stopping an illness that people were talking about quite a lot recently. So, second topic. And on a completely different note, unrelated to the first thing, About 2 years ago, we started seeing a really weird increase in food processing plants starting to blow up and burn down.
Very strange.
2 separate planes flew into 2 different food processing plants. Loads of them sort of burst into flames for whatever reason. Now, here is a list of... Well, it's not the full list. It is a subsection of the plants that blew up. Now, I'll let John just sort of gently scroll by that. But the thing I would note is that there's quite a lot of these line mentioned chickens, occasionally turkeys and ducks, but an awful... I mean, if you add it up, basically millions and millions of chickens started to spontaneously combust and go up in flames in the US.
This is systemic racism, I'm sure.
Yes, it must be something like that. But for whatever reason, because, I mean, food processing plants do periodically go up in flames, but for whatever reason, a couple of years ago, an awful lot of egg-producing ones...
I saw this being blamed a lot on chemical fires and negligence by mainly illegal alien workforces. However...
Right. It's a bit like churches in France, is it?
As an Englishman keen on pattern recognition, I'm kind of suspicious when this many are happening in such a short space of time, and when also, so conveniently, there's a huge fertilizer shortage due to the war in Ukraine and potash and fertilizer byproducts not being exported due to gas not being exported, and also things like the gas cylinders in guns used to neutralize cattle are not being exported. So just cattle farming, all sorts of animal livestock slaughter and butchery isn't happening.
So food source under attack from multiple angles kind of thing, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And look, it got so bad that apparently recently in California, the price of a dozen eggs hit $9 for a dozen.
Gaston most affected.
Yeah, that seems a bit bad. Now, you've got to remember, eggs are a major input for many food producers. I mean, obviously mayonnaise, but I mean, just a whole swathe of finished food products require eggs as an input, and unless they shut down their business, they don't really have any choice but to pay up for them. So of course the marginal consumer in the supermarket ends up getting sort of heavily squeezed on this. Now, the mainstream media is very keen to stress that there is no story here. Indeed, Snopes, who are obviously very good at making sure that we are only fed the truth, have debunked it, as you would expect. You know, you never start paying to a story until it's officially snoped. Even Forbes did an investigation into it, and their language was very interesting. What they explained is we looked into this, and there was no evidence that there was an agenda to burn down these plants. Well...
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So... mostly peaceful plant burnings.
Well, the thing is, there is no evidence. I mean, yes, it is true. If people were nefariously going down, burning down these plants, if they didn't supply it in a corporate press release, Forbes wouldn't be able to find it. They certainly wouldn't do any investigative journalism themselves. They basically just, Googled, is there any evidence, and they found no. So.
I absolutely trust the outlet that hosted the 2030 You Will Own Nothing and You Will Be Happy article on their website. I absolutely trust them to have our best interest at heart.
Very reasonable. So the mainstream explanation for all of this is avian flu. Now,
side effect of avian flu: arson.
Well, I think they're coming at it more of the of the egg shortage. Now, and apparently it is true that 58 million birds have been culled after public health officials have gone into these places and declared that they've got avian flu, and you're going to have to put down all your birds.
Right. So this is like Geronimo the llama of where they're possibly killing something that doesn't have it, like they did with.
Oh no! No. Public health officials don't make mistakes, Connor. If public health official has gone in and said that you need to destroy 1 million birds, then obviously these people don't make mistakes.
Oh, that's of course. Neil Ferguson, who said that we imported the lockdown measures from China and knew we could get away with it. He was point man on the swine flu and bird flu epidemics before, and he got that right. Definitely, he didn't screw that up whatsoever.
So between extreme heat incineration and public health officials ordering the destructions of millions of birds, we've ended up with a situation where there are quite a shortage of laying hens. And of course, the avian flu is a gift that keeps on giving. So take from the UK, it's because I'm more familiar with what's going on here. I'm sure you'll find similar things in the US as well. But DEFRA put out some new rules where they've basically decided that because the threat of avian flu is so serious, that they are requiring everybody in England, Scotland and Wales from the 14th of December 2020 to keep all of their birds indoors and follow strict biosecurity measures.
I haven't done that at the moment. It's a bit of a bird shortage in my life.
Incidentally, if you're looking for a Rollers Callender's girlfriend, right, the upshot of this is that it becomes basically rather prohibitive and costly to keep chickens. So, you know, they're kind of hitting you on all fronts. It's difficult to buy them because there's a shortage of them, and they're making it as difficult as possible to keep them at home. So, whatever reason, very difficult to buy eggs which are possibly a superfood and possibly can have an effect on a virus. Now, there is one more official explanation, and that came from Joe Biden, who explained that it was a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He said, "It's going to be real," Biden said at a news press conference in Brussels. "The price of sanctions is not just imposed on Russia, it's imposed on an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and ours as well." So there you go. There's all the official explanations. Obviously, you should believe them over any alternative explanation.
So those famous chicken Ukrainian refugees.
Something like that. Well, and actually, look, as senile as he is, I mean, there is a grain of truth in it because energy prices have shot up as a result of us having to buy our Russian gas and oil after it's been marked up by India, passed through there, and then shipped round the longer way. So it's entirely possible that energy prices have made keeping chickens and other farm produce a bit more expensive, so there's probably a grain of truth for that. So yeah, that's the outcome from the second topic, which lots of chickens died and it's possibly Putin's fault. Now, the third aspect of this, which I wanted to talk about, and this is something that I've been seeing for quite a while now on social media. It's one that keeps cropping up. It's lots of chicken owners who have noticed that their chickens stopped laying eggs, often for months at a time, until they switched away from commercial feed to locally produced ones. Now, there are loads of videos, which I'm sure you've all seen on your social media. Here's one. Let's see what this lady says.
This has been literally 6+ months since June that I've had little to no eggs with 100 chickens. At least 50 of them are laying age. I was getting like at least a couple dozen a day, and that was before I had as many laying as I do now. And then in June, something just flipped and they stopped laying. I contributed it to heat, and then fall came around, and then I was like, maybe it's shorter daylight hours, did lights, did everything. Literally, guys, I tried everything. I stopped free-ranging them to see if they were hiding them. And then I saw so many posts about the Producer's Pride feed, which is what I had switched to, and do more feed in general. I went from getting just a couple eggs a day to stopped using Producer's Pride and started using a different Do More feed, which I know they're both owned by Purina, but I knew for a fact that Producer's Pride specifically, everybody was having problems with. Like, so many people, not newbies, and it wasn't from daylight hours. Like, it was 6+ months of no eggs. Come to find out, Purina had outsourced people in different companies to make the feed for them to supplement, which explains why some people had problems with Producer's Pride and some people didn't. Because they said that it's not the exact same, that it's not lower quality, but it may be different. Okay, anyway, besides the point, you know how many eggs I got today? I got 17 eggs, and I literally just switched the feed yesterday.
So this is one video. There are loads of others, and what I find interesting is you then go into the comments and you start looking at people who've commented on this, and loads of people are saying that they've had exactly the same experience. So maybe there is something there. So
Purina are owned by Nestle.
Right.
Nestle have had a frequent presence at our very old favourites, World Economic Forum.
Oh, good for them.
I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
Oh, absolutely. Anyway, so look, and honestly, guys, I'm throwing up these three completely unrelated topics, and personally, I genuinely don't know. I mean, maybe these aren't things. Maybe it was just a bad year for commercial chicken farms going up in flames. Maybe the avian flu really does demand the destruction of millions of birds. Maybe it really was just a bit of a screw up with commercial food, or maybe it's some other aspect and people just all jumping to the conclusion it's the commercial food. You know, each of these things individually is fairly easy to dismiss. When you put them up together, maybe they're still easy to dismiss. And honestly, I don't know what I think about this subject. I'm throwing it up there and I'm just saying this is something to percolate. Before we go, should I give you one more bonus, completely unrelated topic to any of this? I'm going to talk about a 1974 paper written by the US National Security Council under Henry Kissinger. Now, this was a 200-page study which talked about implications of population growth for the US. And it contained the line, the infamous line, who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. And who controls the money controls the world. Now, this is a very old paper. It was written in 1970. And I just have a couple of questions on this. Question one is, do deep state actors still think along these lines? Perhaps they no longer think like this and we don't need to worry about it.
Well, Henry Kissinger is the head of the Bilderberg Group and frequents the WEF and was the architect behind the Chinese opening up their economic borders to now surpass the US economically.
Yeah, true, but I mean, it has been decades since this paper written, so maybe he himself has changed.
Has had a change of heart. He's like
the institutions
Scrooge.
have also changed their mind.
Yeah.
Second question on this. I mean, and well, actually, more of an observation. I noticed that thanks to Biden's blundering around, or not just Biden's, but the US State Department's blundering their cack-handedness of the way that they treated foreign Russian reserves. Basically, the dollar is now not the gold standard for international trade. You've got the Saudis looking at accepting yuan and other currencies for oil. The dollar is starting to pull back as being the sort of global money source. So that part of the statement I read you about money controls the world, well, that bit is evaporating. Secondly, the energy. That bit is evaporating as well now that the energy is becoming increasingly unreliable, the push for net zero, the fragmentation of resources. So that bit is starting to contract as well. So if you knock out those two bits of the statement, what it gets us down to is the first statement, which is what all they're left with is having to control the local population, and you do that through the food supply. Now, like I say, maybe they don't think like that anymore, but if they did, possibly you could draw erroneous connections between any of these things. And again, this is another one where I'll take a look at the comments and I'll see what you think. Do you think there's any connection, or am I just connecting things that don't link?
I have an idea, but we'll have to save it for the website for those watching on YouTube. Until then, no eggs. Empty egg carton.
Right, so let's get rid of the YouTube people and then find out what you think.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the premium podcast, this one on how MLK is not a conservative hero. If you'd like to find out what else putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.